Please, no more Leaf news. John Chaika said you're gonna take your Leafs news and you're gonna love it. No, but seriously, they signed some guys. They re-signed some guys. And it's actually got kind of interesting roster implications. Let's talk about it. The Toronto Maple Leafs have re-signed 3 restricted free agents: forward Jacob Quillan, forward Ryan Tverberg, and defenseman William Villeneuve. All 3 of them played for the Leafs last season, and there's a chance all 3 of them play for the Leafs this season. So let's talk about that. Here's what's up. Jacob Quillan, who is 24, signed a 1-year contract, and at the end of it, he will still be a restricted free agent. So the Leafs will have his rights, and he'll have to get offer sheeted. Hey, if he's good enough by the end of the season that someone wants to offer sheet him, awesome. Ryan Tverberg, who is also 24, signed a 1-year deal, and at the end of it, he will be a Group 6 UFA. That's one of those weird idiosyncrasies in the collective bargaining agreement that sometimes happens. If I'm not mistaken, the Leafs were able to get Michael Bunting from the Arizona Coyotes, even though he was young, because he became a UFA at an unusually young age. William Villeneuve, and I think this is a pretty big deal for the kid, 24 years old. He's barely played in the NHL, and when he did, it was in garbage time. Just earned a 2-year contract extension. And importantly for the Leafs, at the end of those 2 years, he will still be a restricted free agent. Steve, what's their cap hit? Well, I might as well tell you their cap hit. They're nothing to worry about. Both Quillan and Tverberg have an $850,000 cap hit, and that's when they're with the Leafs, because they might be playing a lot of next season with the Marlies. The Leafs also might lose him for nothing, so we'll talk about that in a sec. Will Villeneuve's cap hit for the next 2 seasons, when he's in the NHL, $875,000. With regard to waivers, because if you look at all the players that the Leafs have on their roster now, there might not be space for a guy like Bo Grew, who played a decent amount of time with the Leafs last season and was quite good. He was so good that they sent him down in part because, come on, Bo, you're screwing up this whole tanking thing. Jacob Quillan will not require waivers. So, if he doesn't make the team out of camp, the Leafs want to send him down, they can without putting him on waivers. They're not exposing him to the other 31 teams and risking the idea that he might get claimed. Here's the bad news. Ryan Tverberg and Will Villeneuve are waivers eligible, so they can go on waivers if the Leafs want to send them down. Now, maybe Leafs send them down and they don't get claimed at all. Maybe they don't get claimed at all. And if they don't get claimed at all, it's not a big deal. But what if they do get claimed? Well, I fear that Ryan Tverberg will win the Rocket Richard and Will Villeneuve will eventually win the Norris. And that is the way things work. Listen, all 3 of these guys just won a Calder Cup with the Toronto Marlies. There's been interesting debate I've seen amongst Leafs Twitter about how these guys are treated or how they're viewed. And it's kind of weird because you're John Chaika, you're getting interviewed in the process, and they're probably asking you, hey, what are you going to do with this team? Oh, well, I think this about hockey, I think that about hockey, I would probably trade this guy, and I'm going to try to trade this guy, and I'm going to trade for this guy, and I'm going to acquire this. All the while you're brand new on the job, and you're trying to figure things out, and you're wheeling and dealing, the Marlies are getting farther and farther in the playoffs. Then they're in the Calder Cup final, and then they win. Kind of convincingly. And when the Leafs signed so many players, particularly depth forwards, on free agency day on July 1st, I saw a few people go, oh, that's got to be a bit demoralizing for the Marlies guys, though, right? Not so fast, because this video is about the 3 guys that the Leafs just signed or re-signed, but really it's about what's going on here. Claude Giroux. He just re-signed with the Ottawa Senators. It sounded like he was going to go to Philly, ended up in Ottawa, and it sounds like the Leafs made a big push for him. And there's rumors and reports that the Leafs are out there trying to do other stuff. It sure sounds like they're trying to acquire more stuff, acquire more difference makers. Here's the problem. They don't really have the space to do that. According to Puckpedia, the Leafs are already well over $2 million above the salary cap. Now, there is an asterisk on that. Max Domi is probably going to get put on long-term injury reserve, and once he is, the Leafs will have something like $1 million to play with. That's still not very much if you want to do anything. So on the podcast, we were talking about, well, Morgan Rielly. That's an obvious target because he keeps getting talked about in trade rumors. Another name that might seem obvious is Matthew Knies because he was involved in so much, but that's all really quieted down, and a lot of the rumors that Knies was wrapped up in had to do specifically with the 2026 NHL draft, which has come and gone, and Knies is still a Leaf. One of the other guys that we talked about on the podcast was Dakota Joshua. Not to pick on the guy, because I actually thought when he was healthy and playing with the Leafs last year, he was really good and really effective. I really liked him with Nick Waugh, but having 2 years left at about $3.5 million per, looking at him on the fourth line, his contract stands out. Let's look at the forwards and try to figure out who might be a trade candidate. Austin Matthews, doubt it. William Nylander, doubt it. Matthew Knies, maybe, but until proven otherwise, doubt it. John Tavares, strongly doubt it. Colton Sissons just got here. Jack Roslovic just got here. Max Domi injured. Dakota Joshua. Paul just got here. Brandon Duhaime just got here. Teddy Bluger just got here. Steven Lorentz is interesting, but he also doesn't make very much. He's kind of a versatile player who's part of your penalty kill, and he's Sergei Bobrovsky's buddy. Is Gavin McKenna getting traded? I'll find you. Is Easton Cowan getting traded? I'll find you. And ending it off with Zach McEwen just got here. You look at that group and guys who the Leafs might pitch out the door in some kind of deal. Dakota Joshua seems like an obvious target that they would make calls about. That is, if they want to add. And it sounds like they do. But you never know what to believe. If Morgan Rielly is traded out the door, I doubt it's in the kind of deal where the Leafs end up taking on more salary cap than they're trading out. It's possible, but I doubt it. All that to say, with the likes of Quillan, Tverberg, and Villeneuve, specifically Tverberg and Villeneuve because they need waivers, it's not impossible that there's a roster spot for these guys by the time camp arrives. Over the past decade, what has the Leafs' biggest problem been? The funniest answer is everything. The real answer is the playoffs. Well, both Tverberg and Villeneuve specifically, the guys who require waivers, had really good playoffs with the Marlies en route to a championship. It's such a shame what the Leafs did with the end of the season with regard to the young guys, because Ryan Tverberg played one game, had no points, he took a penalty, and was a +1. I can't glean anything from that. In the regular season, 63 games, 15 goals, 21 assists, 36 points. That's good. Not bad from Rhino. In the playoffs, the rate was even better. In 24 games, 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points. That was 4th among Marlies forwards and 5th on the whole team. William Villeneuve, wait till you get a load of this. Will Villeneuve, who is a 24-year-old right-handed defenseman, sounds like exactly the kind of player the Leafs would want, had a good regular season and an even better playoff. Again, Villeneuve played in 3 games at the end of the season, had no stats across the board, and was a +1. You can't glean anything from that. Craig, what were you doing? But in 61 games, Villeneuve had 3 goals, 27 assists for 30 points. In 61 games. 30 points in 61 games. There's a reason I'm repeating that. In 24 Calder Cup playoff games, William Villeneuve had 23 points. He was a nearly point per game defenseman, right-handed. It matters. In the Calder Cup playoffs en route to a championship. 2 goals, 21 assists during those 24 games. 34 penalty minutes. Who put a bee in your bonnet there, Will? Only one Marley on the entire team of any position had more points than Will Villeneuve, and that was Vinny Lettieri, who the Leafs also re-signed, so hooray. Maybe this is unfair. I don't want to pit these guys against each other. Ryan Tverberg, he goes on waivers. I really hope he's not claimed. There's also a decent chance he's not. Will Villeneuve? I badly don't want him going on waivers. I think he's getting claimed. Look around the league. How many teams could use a player like that? The answer, I think, is more than one, and I think one of those teams is the Leafs. And to me, let's not treat these guys like Fabergé eggs. All 3 of Tverberg, Villeneuve, and Quillan are 24. That's barely a prospect. Like, oh boy, you're really clinging on. Development as a hockey player continues through your 30s. Bobby McMahon was a late bloomer. We are all constantly learning as human beings. I get all that. But if you need to hold these guys as an extra out of camp and they're not playing every day, this isn't one of those situations where it's like, oh, but why are you sitting him and you're not playing? He should be getting seasoning down in the minor. This is not Easton Cowan. Easton Cowan is barely 21. This is different. That 3-year gap might seem insignificant, but this is pro sports. Imagine how good Cowan might be in 3 years. That's the gap, right? Now, I keep referencing Puckpedia and the Leafs salary cap picture. The Puckpedia cap picture for the Leafs has 14 forwards, which you're allowed to do. You're allowed to have 3 extra guys, so you could do 2 extra forwards and 1 extra D. A lot of the preseason lineups that I've seen either have Dakota Joshua as a scratch, or more of them I've seen have Steven Lorentz as a scratch. But Zach McEwen is listed on this roster. Zach McEwen is 30 years old and played 3 NHL games last year. He's played 240 NHL games and put up 34 points. Well, how's he made a career at 323 penalty minutes? That's how. You can look him up on YouTube. There's plenty of videos. This dude fights, and fights often when he plays. Played 3 games last year. 6'4", 226 pounds. There's still a role for that in the NHL, man. But here's what I think is a little more realistic. You put that guy on waivers, I don't think he's getting claimed. He might, maybe, but if he is claimed, it's aw shucks, you lose him. But you know what you're losing. You're losing a 30-year-old heavyweight. With Ryan Tverberg and Will Villeneuve, you put them on waivers and you lose them, you might be losing more than that. Now, you might be like, Steve, geez, give Jacob Quillan some love here. And he's played way more NHL games than either of Tverberg or Villeneuve combined. He played 23 games last season. And I'm going to throw this out there. Shouldn't have. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because he wasn't a fit for what Craig Berube had him doing at all. Which was, at times, being a healthy scratch, but it was mostly being 4th-line center. When he was called up, he led the Marlies in scoring. And I'm sure he wasn't sad to be getting an NHL paycheck and playing in the NHL, but it didn't do anything for him, I don't think. In 40 games in the AHL, he had 14 goals, 22 assists, 36 points. Really, really, really good. In the playoffs, he chipped in 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points in 19 games, and they win the Calder Cup. In 23 games with the Leafs, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points, -5. He's a big enough guy. He's willing to go. I have no doubt that if there are injuries, Quillan will play games with the Leafs this season, but it's not a crisis because you can waive him and no one can claim him. You don't need to have this guy make the team out of camp unless he's exemplary, because if he makes the team out of camp, you risk losing other guys like Tverberg and Villeneuve on waivers. And that, by the way, is a scenario where the Leafs have 14 forwards. If they have 14 forwards, they can only have 7 D, which is to say 1 spare D. Well, right now, the Leafs have Darren Radish, Morgan Rielly, Jake McCabe, Chris Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Emil Andre, and Troy Stecher, all under contract. Worth noting, both Andre and Stecher signed 2-year deals. Andre, you just traded for $1.55 million. Stecher, $1.35 million. I don't think you're waiving those guys, are you? Andre, you're definitely not. He's getting claimed. Stecher, who is much older, I don't think he's getting claimed, but that's kind of a lot of money to pay a guy to play in the minors. I mean, I don't care. It's Rogers' money, not mine. They want to pay a 32-year-old like $1.5 million to play in the minors. Cool beans. But with the way things are shaping up right now, if Villeneuve's going to end up making this team out of camp, he's got to take someone's job, whether it's a defenseman or a forward. The Leafs are going to have to put some pretty useful players on waivers this fall. Possible Villeneuve is one of those players. It seems downright likely that Tverberg is one of those players. Bo Groulx too. I keep saying Bo Groulx, but we all fell in love with Bo Groulx. What do you think is going to happen? Is John Chayka going to continue to tinker with this roster? Is Dakota Joshua getting moved? Is Steven Lorentz getting moved? Is Morgan Rielly getting moved? Is there still potentially a Matthew Nyes deal out there? What's going on? Let me know in the comments down below. For now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. You just watched a video in July about like 3 RFA signings who are probably going to play most of their season in the AHL. We're sickos together. It's cool. Don't worry about it.